Top 5 Star Wars spaceships. So these may not be the most notable Star Wars ships in the galaxy, and they're not going to be as large as like Star Destroyers, but each one of these ships holds their own inside the universe. And these ships are going to be owned by individuals or small groups, not large factions or government organizations inside of the Star Wars universe. Starting off with the T6 Shuttle, or Ahsoka's spaceship. The semicircular T6 Shuttle featured a rotating engine block and a cockpit that orientated with the rest of the ship when it landed or in flight, that gave it its distinct look when flying and made us say, hey, that's a pretty cool ship. We also see it in the Clone Wars, as it was a Jedi ambassadorial craft and it usually had no weaponry, but they could be added on later with aftermarket parts. And of course the T6 Shuttle was certainly one of the cooler ships that we got to see fully realized in the Ahsoka series, but again it did appear in the Clone Wars, and it was manufactured by the Verpine hives of Slayn and Corpil. Don't really know who those people are in Star Wars, but it was large enough that it did come with its own Jedi dojo aboard it. And of course one of these was home to Ahsoka Tano long after the Empire fell, and it's definitely an interesting craft to have survived that long, as like I said it was a Jedi ambassadorial craft, but it's very cool to see in that timeline and era of Star Wars that we get to see it in the Ahsoka series. To put it simply, it's a Republic era ship in the New Republic era. It survived the Empire and is still flying. The next Star Wars ship is the luxury yacht, the Stinger Mantis. The ship had 3 separate sections on its outside exterior. The front and back were segmented by a rotating section that housed the main outrigging engine and a large vertical fin, giving it a similar flying style to the T6 that we saw just before. But this one had enough room and space for a small crew, along with plenty of amenities, focusing on a relaxing and pleasurable stay aboard the Stinger Mantis. It was a luxury yacht developed by Latero Spaceworks, and of course it was also home to Jedi Cal Kestis after the fall of the Republic, and it was formerly owned by Grease. I don't know how he got it, that's maybe a story for later, but nonetheless the Stinger Mantis is certainly a craft that we get to see in the Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order series. Like I said, a very cool flight style similar to the T6 Shuttle, but nonetheless both of these ships house their Jedis in their respective eras. This next ship may or may not carry a Jedi in the same scenario, but it was the Fondor Hallcraft, or Luthen Rail's Hallcraft. It was a modified V-21.1 Chevlex, and what made this craft interesting is that it had a added droid modification acting as a co-pilot, as well as multiple hidden countermeasures such as laser beams and projectile launchers, and it was more of a stealth fighter with aftermarket parts that made this spaceship unique. And of course we love the scenario where it takes down the Arrestor cruiser in Andor, but I think there's still more to this craft to be seen, and I hope we get to see more of it in Andor Season 2 with Luthen Rail's piloting skills. But that is the Fondor Hallcraft. The next ship up carries the Bad Batch, the Marauder, which was overall just a modified Omicron-class attack shuttle, and it was developed by Cygnus Spaceworks, and it was overall upgraded by Tak and other members of the Bad Batch, and operated more as a stealth fighter than an assault ship. And of course the Bad Batch was really never meant to live out of it, and was more of a vehicle to be transported in between missions, but of course the Bad Batch stole it from the Republic, and it's acting as a rogue ship with a number of clearance codes that the Bad Batch held. So it's definitely an interesting, kind of teched up version of an attack shuttle, but certainly a very cool blacked out version of the Omicron-class attack shuttle. So that is the Marauder. The final ship we have for today is the JType Naboo Starskiff. and the skiff retained the sleek teardrop shape of the main hull and wide sweeping wings of Royal cruisers, and of course it was created by the Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Corps. This Royal Star skiff was also armed with top-mounted laser cannons, and what makes this interesting is that it's a product of turbulent times, as most Royal vessels were defenseless, and Naboo's dedication to peace and non-violence. The JType skiff appears very briefly in episode 3 when Padme needs to leave Coruscant for a bit, but even for that little snippet that we get to see this in the Star Wars universe, it captivates us, and it definitely is a very cool starship just looking at it alone, with its chromium design as well. Even though it wasn't designed for direct confrontation, it had the speed and agility and quick escapes, and the ship could recover from any damage that it may sustain before it needs to actually get into combat. But nonetheless, it's a very cool craft and the final one for these 5-star ships. Which one's your favorite? Subscribe if you would like, and until next video, goodbye.